Welcome back into this first edition of the stay-at-home edition of the BRSN Insider. Josh Pound, now happy to be joined by head softball coach Paul Hunt. And I guess the first thing, Coach, we'll talk about before we get into maybe a little bit about what the season is, how are you and the family holding up during these unique times?
Doing really well. It's been really, really weird. This is normally a time of the year that we don't get to see each other a whole lot. It seems like we're always playing, competing, recruiting, and it's been nice to take a step back and spend some time with the kids. And for my wife and I, taking on this new challenge of homeschooling. So we've got, for those that don't know, we've got 4 little ones at home. My oldest daughter's 9, and then we have a 7-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son, and a just turned 1-year-old daughter. So our house right now is chaotic, to say the least. We're really itching for our kids to just be able to go have some social time with some of their friends. And, there's only so many ways that we can help them burn off energy. So,
Well, you have a unique perspective. Your season was going, but basically not even maybe a third of your schedule was in the books when everything changed. 9-6 to start the season off. Just talk about how you felt like and how the team felt about the season, the way it was progressing before everything came down.
Sure. And, for this year, especially, we were still really kind of learning who we were as a team. From the year prior, we graduated, 5 starters. This year we had 2 everyday starters that were returning for us, and Blair Shanks and Molly Chevalier, both seniors this past year for us. Outside of that, our everyday position players were new to the program or were taking on a new role from what they had in prior years. So we had a lot of depth, which is a really great spot to be. And we also had a lot of kids that have, versatile skill sets and can play a lot of positions on the field. And trying to kind of figure out, okay, hey, who's our group and what's our best chemistry fit on side of the field. And, we expect that every year. You'll see a lot of different lineups for us in those first, 10 to 15 games every year. This year we just had so many people that were competing at different positions that we were still kind of figuring out, hey, who's our group, which was a great spot to be in. And I was really excited about this year. I thought this is probably our most athletic team we've had top to bottom since I've been here. And for us, it kind of feels a little bit like it was taken away. Like a lot of people are experiencing that, all these programs that are kind of having these same battles that we're having. But for us, we looked at it like this was our chance to go compete at the top of the heart, to go build on what we did in the conference tournament last year. And really, we felt like we were a team that was built for the postseason. 1 game a day formats really, really suit what our team was this year. And that was really our focus was, how can we best be prepared for postseason play? And compared to our first 2 years, the first year is for any coach taken into a new program. I think it's a lot of learning, hey, what's currently here. And then for the players that were currently here, what is our style? How are we going to play and how are we going to move forward? And then in year 2, we just had really fortunate. My first year here, we didn't have any seniors. So we had so much buy-in and we had so much leadership that came back that second year that I really thought that year we took huge strides forward. And not just on the field, just culturally. Having leadership and having it shown to where new players coming in, younger players coming in, they had something to look up to and something to strive for. So now this year was the first year where it felt like, we had a group that from the day we moved in the fall, our leaders knew what to expect. They knew what we were trying to accomplish, what different times of the year feel like for us. And, I look at a lot of our early schedule, and I'm always going to try to make our non-conference schedule. I think the heart is so tough. I want to make our non-conference schedule as tough as we can possibly make it. See if we can be challenged and continue to grow before that. And we had done that this year. We added the 2 games with Morningside, adding the 2 games with Avila, who was in the opening round of the national tournament a year ago. I think Cody College is coming up, and I think you're going to see them in the NAI have a strong presence over the next few years. Coach Dapin's doing a great job there. Midland's having a lot of success there year in, year out, in that top in the country conversation. And to be able to go and have some really high quality wins, I think especially the Morningside sweep over the 2 days and the weekend really highlighted the promise of what this year could have been. When we look at a couple, we fell that last day. We had 3 games scheduled on the day that we found out we were no longer playing. And, emotionally, that wasn't our team that day. I think we were dealing with a whole lot of non-softball issues. And I really feel like this was the year that we were going to take off and go.
Well, and then you alluded to it. So you guys head out to Arizona. You have a number of games out there to play over spring break, which is something you've gone to different parts of the. You went to Florida 1 year. You've gone out to Arizona 2 years in a row now to go over spring break. That's things that softball teams traditionally do to get a lot of games in nicer, more softball friendly climates. And then, as you mentioned, the weather kind of got a little bad out there for you, so you had to kind of scramble around to get a few more games added. And as you guys are playing that final day, the information starts coming out that the seasons are going to be suspended. Just take us back to what was obviously at that point probably for you guys, softball takes a back seat because there's a lot of unknowns of, are we going to be able to get back to campus? Am I going to be able to get where I need to go? It had to have been a tough situation for you guys, and just take us back through. Obviously the team didn't respond well on the field, but given the circumstances, that was probably understandable.
Absolutely. So normally, traditionally, I love spring break week, and that's whether we're taking a trip or we're on campus. What I really like about spring break week is everything slows down. We've got a lot of pressures through our entire year. For the girls academically, one of the things I take a lot of pride in is our girls do a great job in the classroom, and they take that very, very serious. And we've got a lot of a lot of girls that take courses that are tough. They're majors. We have a lot of bio majors, girls that are going to do big things past softball. And the spring break week is really, really nice. Is for the most part that kind of shuts down, and softball becomes a big focus. But to me, the biggest part of our spring break week is our community. We have opportunities. Our families, we've been very fortunate to have families that can travel really, really well. This past year, every single player on our roster had a family member that was present for at least a portion of that trip. And, this year's spring break week was no different. It was first and foremost taken away, hey, can we spend a full week together, and the bonds that are going to come from that, and prep you if you run into a little bit of adversity in late April, early May. But we got down there, played really well out of the gate in Arizona, and then the forecast started coming, and the battle of, hey, are we playing? Are we not playing? Are we going to drive from Phoenix to Tucson? Was really, really crazy. And, to think, we left Atchison, Kansas, which historically has been awful during spring break week. And, kept looking back at weather reports, and it's like, man, we'd be playing at home. And so there was a little bit of stress, anxiety that started happening with that. And then, the big thing that changed, I know, everything with the pandemic was starting to unfold at that point, but the news that hit me the hardest personally was when I saw the NBA shut down. We start talking about the millions of dollars that an organization like that is going to lose by not having a season. And that's when I first said, okay, hey, this is bigger than anybody's talked about. This is bigger than things that we faced before. And then, I think social media is great and awful all at the same time. And all of our girls are starting to realize, okay, hey, sports are shutting down. NCAA started making moves to have, you know, baby steps of, hey, fans not being in attendance to, hey, we're not playing seasons. And, with the NAI, it was a little bit later. I think the NAI had hopes that, hey, our crowds are typically not the sizes that you're going to see in the big Division One stage. Maybe we're going to be okay. Maybe we're going to be able to slide through this thing and still hold our season. And I, really a lot of appreciation for our leaders inside of the NAI, because I think they took that approach early, and that gave us a lot of hope. But then as you started to see more things close and slow down, the unknown, I think in any situation, the unknown is one of the hardest areas to be in. And that's where our girls were. The conversations that throughout the house on an off day because of the rain, it wasn't so much of, hey, what are we doing for team building? What are we doing? It was, hey, do you think we're going to play? Do you think we'll play the next day? Do you think campus will move into campus? Because then we started seeing a lot of other schools prior to Benedictine that were saying, okay, hey, we're not going to move back to campus right away. So that anxiety was really, really high. And then the night before is when we realized, okay, hey, we're going to be able on, I don't remember the date of that, but the Thursday going into the Friday, we're going to be able to get a couple games scheduled in Tucson. So we're going to drive from Phoenix to Tucson. And that drive to the ballpark was about 2.5 hours. And about an hour and a half in, we got the message from the NAI. This was going to be it until, well, not indefinitely at that point in time. We just were suspended. And thankfully at that moment, we looked at it and said, okay, hey, we get one more day. We're going to get to go out and compete one more time. And, preparation was different inside of that day. Emotions were high, especially for our upperclassmen, our seniors that were wondering, okay, is this going to be a short-term suspension? I know that was a big conversation that day, or is this going to be it? And it was a spot of the unknown. We didn't have answers for him. It was really, really tough. And, we ended up, giving up a late lead in that first game of the day, and made a nice run in the 7th inning to be in a position that we could have won a ball game. And we're spots of orders where, like, we expect big things to happen. So it kind of felt, hey, no big deal. Gonna leave with a nice win in game one. And I think the pressures of non-softball really, really kind of took over from that point on. And thankfully, after the length of that day, having all the families there, our senior parents stepped up a little bit and said, hey, we'd like to do a senior day just in case. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We don't know if they're going to be able to come back, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really nice at the end of that day. I try to not be much of a talker after games. I always feel like we can address things that we need to address later. Let's be kind of short and sweet. And I got a little emotional out in the outfield, kind of figuring out, hey, what's going to happen, for players like Blair Shanks and Molly Chevalier and Alex Gillum and, Faith Harding, our four that were graduating. And knowing that we're going to go back and we're going to kind of have a senior day without the real crowd that they would have had we been on campus. And, seeing how that impacted the families, and how much softball has meant to them throughout, not just at Benedictine, but, growing up, going through travel ball, going through the high school circuit, all of those challenges and memories that they had to share. And thankfully, the ballpark was really kind to us because we were the last game of the day. And I think we ended up staying on the field for about an extra, hour and a half after our last game against Jamestown had ended. On top of that, then we had a couple hour ride back to get to our house in Phoenix. And honestly, we ran into a little bit of car trouble. We had a tire that blew on a rental van, and It was kind of like, what else can kind of happen. And we pulled into the house long enough. Um, the girls had about 15 minutes to pack all of their stuff, and we had to run to the airport to catch that flight. And still, all this news is coming, and really, really grateful for our administration. Coach Gartmeyer was sending information as fast as he had it, and that was really helpful. But at the same time, while we're going through all this change, um, everything just happened so fast for us. And the second we got back to campus, we sat down and we had individual meetings with all of our players that had nothing to do with softball. And I think that's the first time since I've been here that we've been in that situation where there wasn't one conversation about the diamond. It was how do we get everybody home safe. At that point in time, the dorms had been shut down, and the college had done a great job of helping us, saying, okay, hey, if you need to spend the night on campus, spend the night on campus, but let's make sure we can get everybody in an environment where we can have some long-term success. And then not knowing what that meant, especially for, we carry a roster with, homes from all over, and, figuring out, okay, hey, let's load your stuff up while you're driving home, or should you plan to have a trip back? So there was just a lot of anxiety over that, 48 hours. Thankfully, we had, a lot of people stepped up in the process to make it as smooth as possible. And in the big picture, and the thing that's really been the silver lining so far, and knock on wood and prayers we stay this way inside of our softball family, minus not having softball games, the pandemic hasn't really hit any of us too close to home yet. We've been very fortunate to now all of our players are home. They're safe. Their families are safe. Inside of my own home, we haven't had to battle the pandemic directly. And that's still just been our focus since then. It's just making sure, our players mentally are doing well, and we're at a day and age where I think we've done such a great job let me phrase that. I think we're starting to do a better job as a society of recognizing, the importance of mental health, and how much that can wear on all of us, but particularly college students that they're going through a change by moving away from home for the first time and having the pressures of academics. And now we throw something like a crisis that none of us have ever gone through in our lifetimes. And then the transition for our girls that most of our girls hadn't taken online classes ever. And now to make the transition to being an online student, what does that look like? And honestly, our girls did a really great job with that. We're very fortunate to, I think we have a really responsible group of athletes. And I think for the online learning, I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is being able to be disciplined enough to set a routine schedule to make sure, hey, you're following through on communication with professors and reading through syllabuses and changes to syllabuses. And the fact that we have such great academic students on our softball team, I think that made this transition for us so much easier than it could have been. And now it's just been a spot of how do we keep in touch with all of these players, and also make sure they're having success, while I'm not blowing their phone up every single day to where they get annoyed to seeing my name pop up on the caller ID. So we've had a couple of player-run Zoom sessions that I've kind of stayed away from and let them bond. I mean, that's what this is all about. For whether we're on campus and we're playing, or we talk a lot about our alumni and our graduated group. As it's not about us. It's about those relationships. It's about the community. It's so much bigger than softball, and the relationships that they build, and giving them opportunities to keep those relationships growing. For us, it was kind of jumping ship and going all over the place here, but this year was a little unique in the sense of um, we had a few more players that are naturally introverted than we would normally have or have normally had in the past. And, it feels usually like the end of September for us. You start seeing newcomers, particularly freshmen, you start seeing their personalities really break through shells, and you start really fully seeing their personalities. And for us, I really felt like, I actually remember the trip back. We were coming back from the first day of our Avila Morningside series, and we stopped at a Chipotle to eat. And I was sitting down at a table with predominantly freshmen. And this is a big hot topic debate here, but they got into, is water wet? And it was so cool to see is this group of really introverted young ladies that were very, very passionate about such, an odd topic. And from then on out, it was almost like that was the moment our shell broke, and our team was really, really forming and coming together. So now, my biggest hope is we can build on that momentum, and those relationships are continuing to grow. And, the relationships that are going to carry on 10 years after they're gone from Benedictine College.
So you touched on a little bit how everything for you guys happened, within a very tight window. You're traveling back from your spring break trip. Things had been suspended. You get landed, campus starts closing down. That by that Monday, it went from suspended to cancellation. How long did you, once you got everybody off and headed to home, how long did you give them to, kind of transition into settling down, getting things ready to go at home before you reached out to them, as a team?
As a team, we really didn't do a whole lot of big conversations. So we have a group me that we're very active in, so everybody knew what was going on. But honestly, the bigger approach has been individuals right now. Because I looked at it and I think everybody was in a unique situation. And some of them were going to areas that have been hit harder. Others have, others are an hour down the road, and it's, it was a little bit of an easier transition. So really, I would say it was a good week and a half before we were doing full team. Hey, let's get on Zoom. Let's let's carry these conversations. But I say that, and our general text message conversations, our group conversations. I don't think those ever stopped. But it really shifted gears a little bit away from, hey, what's our team doing, to what are you doing? Are you okay? So I guess I don't really have a good answer for that. I'd say probably a week and a half, 2 weeks before we were really, really kind of all connecting again together.
Well, you've kind of, through the course of talking just about this season and transitioning and how things have affected, you've kind of, already established that the team chemistry and the things you felt really good about, this group and how they were getting along and stuff, off the field, on the field. Just if you wouldn't mind, just kind of giving us a little bit about, talk to us a little bit about what maybe some of the foundations are that kind of have helped you just in 3 quick seasons be able to kind of establish that bond amongst your team.
Well, and I've I dictate a lot of this, or not dictate, but I reflect, and I'm thankful that I've had good leaders in my life, and that makes the world of differences, being able to learn from their mistakes. So Rick Sandquist, who is he's got a legend of a career going himself. So he's a 400 plus win baseball coach at Iowa Central. He built that program from its first year, and really, literally brick by brick, to building a stadium, to making it to where it's on the national scale every year. It's in that conversation. And he had left the baseball world. He had went and watched his son played at the University of Iowa for 4 years, and it was really important to him to go watch those games. And he took a step away from teams and became the athletic director at Iowa Central. And then the same time that I made my full-time move from just working when it was available, coaching with Iowa Central, to coaching on the high school side. But my first saying, okay, hey, this is full-time. This is going to be a career for me. I could not have asked for a better person to help mentor and build what I believe. And it's no secret that I'm a real high energy guy. We're very, very intense in just about everything that we do. But to me, it's important that we're efficient. And it's important that at the end of the day, no matter how hard we can be on our athletes of us pushing and striving to be better, that at the end of the day, that they know that we care about them as people. And, watching Coach Sandquist go through situation after situation and just being able to be consistently caring about players first. And so to me, something all of our players have heard me say time and time again, and this starts in the recruiting process, is anytime our players are making a personal decision or, need to take a step forward personally, we can sit down and we can have open conversations and know that we're going to put them as a person first. And then the second it changes is when we start saying, okay, hey, for team success, and when we start talking, hey, what's your role, playing time issues, those types of things that are program first, that they understand, okay, hey, it is about the program, but that's what I'm here for individually as well. Really the biggest lesson that I think we need to have all of our players learn, and it translates to us as coaches, because we need to be in the same boat, as we need to understand, it's not about us. It's not about what we're doing. It's about the group, and it's about how people progress and how people are having successes and what success means. So especially on the softball side, I think female sports especially see this differently than male sports, is the light at the end of the tunnel's there for most of our female athletes, especially, softball. We start looking at the success, baseball's had with, Jarecki getting drafted. We've got a couple guys over there on the diamond next to us that they're hopeful, and I think are deserving of being on that side of it. There's not that next level of opportunity right now inside of softball, and understanding that and realizing, okay, their next steps are, to be the best in their career field, the best inside of their families, whether that is still being a daughter, being a sister, being eventually, and pretty quickly, a lot of times after college, being a mother, and realizing that those next steps are great. And I think we've got a few girls that have been through our program that really highlight that well. We've lost a couple players this past year off of our roster that are doing great things, and that's the reason they weren't with us. So I think Abby Hyde is a great example. Abby Hyde and I came into the program at the same time. I wasn't fortunate enough to recruit Abby. However, we met her move-in day of a couple years ago, and she stepped up and she played a big role as a freshman. She played a bigger role as a sophomore. She was ready to take on a bigger role as a junior, and she's been battling a labrum issue, since prior to being a Benedictine. And it kind of came to a spot where she had to make a decision where, hey, this is going to be an eventual labrum surgery, or it's going to be her career in the nursing field. And I look at it this summer, and I guess I haven't talked to her since all of the pandemic stuff has gone crazy. But she was set to be, I want to say it was like one of 50 out of 2,000 plus applicants to go through an internship up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. and realizing that, like, hey, that's still success to our program. Like, that's such a big thing. Or, when we start looking at our five that graduated a year ago, so we're we're a little bit spoiled as we were able to keep two of them around. Tiffany Ray was um, a student assistant here for us this past year. She finished up her degree, and then we hired Regina Splain on as a graduate assistant for us. Um, but then the other three that are really moving on and getting away from Benedictine, we look at it. Sarah Methvin is having success down in San Antonio. She's working with a CPA firm. Alex Burris is with a minor league team right now, which is really, really cool. And that was her goal. She wants to get into the PR side of it. I know you actually had a chance to work with her quite a bit. And Lily Ross has had a few different ventures since she's left here. But the one that she's been really excited about when we've talked is they're looking at opening one of the largest indoor facilities over at St. Louis, and being on it, hands-on of what the softball side of it is. But they're all set up right now to be successful doing what's after softball. And to me, that's what's important. And I hope that we set the foundation for them and the basis of be a good person. We come in the first day of every year. I know there's a lot of programs that they're going to come in and say, hey, here's our list of rules, here's where it's at, and we're pretty simple. Be a good person, be a good teammate. It's the end of the list. I think that pretty much covers everything that we need to do.
All right. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time this afternoon to visit with us. Obviously, we want you and your family to stay safe and healthy during this time, and we appreciate getting to learn a little bit more about you and the program and everything that you guys have kind of experienced throughout the course of this semester. It stinks that we weren't able to kind of see the semester through and then the potential for this team, but clearly you've established a base that is going to bring some success for you and the program moving forward. So thanks again, Paul.
Nope, sounds good, Josh. I appreciate you. Stay safe.
Yep, you too.
Yep, go Ravens.